I'm gonna laser you up. I'm gonna laser you down. I'm gonna laser you all around.